I think industry does need to continue to innovate, but I think we're a very innovative industry. What we're not very good at is adopting. So there's lots of variations of MMC, there's lots of variations of lots of things. And that is the culture of the construction industry, is everything's a pilot, everything's new. We're always trying to improve. If you injured or killed someone on a construction site, you would be found liable.
Yeah.
If you're a council and you injure or kill someone because of the state of the roads, you're not maintaining them, you're not liable.
Right. Hello and welcome to our episode of Build Up from the Basement with the Federation of Master Builders, down here in the basement of the FMB. I'm absolutely delighted that today we have got Mike Reader joining us, the MP for Northampton South and the government's construction champion. Hello, Mike. Lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we've also got Jeremy Gray, our Head of External Affairs, who is going to be taking a deeper dive into some of the points that, Mike, you're going to make today. So brilliant. Mike, you have had 20 years experience in the construction industry, working for massive bodies like Mace. So what initially drew you into that sector?
It's a really good question. And I wish there was this kind of story that I always wanted to work in construction. In reality, I failed my A-levels, but I'd managed to get onto a year in industry, and I joined a civil engineering firm called Scott Wilson, who are now, through various mergers, AECOM, and I did a year working in their highways team and found this job where you could be creative and ask difficult questions, and it was very hands-on. I did surveying. I even designed a mini roundabout at the age of 18, which I was very proud of.
Brilliant. And
so I managed to get into university with a foundation degree, and then went on to do civils at Loughborough, and then joined a firm called Pick Everard working in water engineering.
That is really, really interesting. So you're very, very experienced in this sector, as we know. So how do you think your experience in the industry is shaping your sort of view on the sector as an MP?
Yeah, if this was a government that their big focus was solely on the NHS reform or solely on education reform, I think I would be a bit lost, because the policy side of government I find fascinating and completely new. And being in how policy is formed and developed and how it's tested and engaged with, like with organisational FMB, in terms of the built environment, is fascinating to see how that kind of develops and is co-created with industry. But this is a government that number one agenda was growth. It was about building, house building, infrastructure building, and the government's going to set their strategy on growth in our sector. So I feel very fortunate that I can be a critical friend to government, but a critical friend with a lot of industry knowledge. Yeah. And I spend a lot of my time going out and speaking to industry, to let them know there's a voice in government that understands the issues they're facing, but also to be that conduit to bring ideas back into number 10, number 11 and elsewhere.
Yeah, brilliant.
What's the transition like from, you work for corporate business, now you're going into
good question.
a funny place with funny people. What's it?
You got funny people everywhere.
You're just over 12 months now, isn't it? So.
Yeah, I did a lot of research before I even stood as a candidate. Spoke to MPs that I knew through the Labour Party. There's some great books. Why We Get the Wrong Politicians.
I love
is particularly
that book.
a good book.
Brilliant.
Prepared me.
It's brilliant.
I think I'm living through that book right now.
Very good. Do you know some of the case studies? You're probably bumping into people mentioned it.
Yeah, maybe. But by the time I left Mace, I was the director of work winning. So I within reason, I could do what I wanted to do within Mace, as long as I was working to that overall corporate goal. And being a politician is very similar. Is actually you've got free reign to focus on what you want to work for, as long as it's been the framework of your manifesto. And so I've actually just kind of got stuck in, learnt by doing, made myself really busy, and it's kind of paid off in that I feel like I made a big impact in year one.
Are you working harder now, or when you're in construction?
Yeah, which is harder?
Because I remember when we met early on in your term.
Yeah.
And you worked really hard at Mace. It sounded.
Yeah.
You're doing 7 days a week.
I think I still work as hard here. The stress is different.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
So
mental thing.
Being in the boardroom at Mace, facing up to the owners when something's gone wrong, former owners who are no longer with the business, in case anyone Mace is listening, and watching them scream for 40 minutes and every expletive about what, it never happened to me, but it's happened to my colleagues. That's quite a humbling experience. And being judged on your wins and losses when you know you're the difference between a couple of hundred people getting a job, and the schemes I was bidding are in the hundreds of millions of pounds of fees, billions of pounds of construction. The pressure is on to deliver. Whereas as an MP, the pressure is less, but there's a bit more kind of personal attacks. So it's different.
Yeah.
But I still work. I still try and take a day off every week. And I still kind of keep grounded of thinking long game, as I always did at Mace and Pick Everard, long game, what am I trying to do long term, not worrying about the short term wins and losses.
Thank you, Mike. So, as the Labour Party's construction champion, first of all, can you explain a bit about what that is? Can you explain a bit about what that means?
There was a push from the opposition, particularly, to say, the Labour Party doesn't stand business, even though we were by far polling, both pre-election and post-election, as the kind of party that was understanding some of the challenges. And so the party reached out to backbenchers like me and said, we're looking for people to come and, help advocate and engage. When you're in opposition, and you probably found this, Jeremy, opposition MPs have loads of time to engage in industry because essentially they're trying to build a manifesto to win, they're trying to engage. When you become a minister, you've actually got a day job.
Yeah.
So that Darren Jones or Sarah Jones or whoever else are going to be, these kind of MPs who hold big positions now, who are big advocates of our industry, just don't have that time. So we're perhaps providing an additional mechanism to engage with industry and feedback.
So you're going on ground?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I went to UK Reef for 3 days. That was great. I was doing event after event after event, but just talking to people, listening to what their concerns were. I did lots of breakfast events, round tables, dinners, podcasts, events like this, write articles, meet people from industry when I'm in Parliament, so that we are developing policy and delivering on our manifesto in line with industry rather than in conflict with industry.
Really, really interesting and well put. Thank you, Mike.
What are people saying when you go out and meet them? What's the word on the ground? Are we optimistic? Or
I would compare, for example, UK Reef 2 years ago, and for your listeners out, UK Reef is one of the biggest property events in the UK, if not the biggest now, held in Leeds. 2 years ago, it was peeing down with rain, and halfway through, Rishi Sunak called the general election.
Really miserable.
I had to rush back. There's a much longer story, but I had to rush back to start campaigning, I'll tell you one day. And everyone was really just exhausted with the government. That we'd had target changes on housing. There was kind of real loss of momentum about things like Grenfell, which will get impact particularly on kind of the construction product sector. There was loss of momentum on how we drive growth in infrastructure. This year, everyone was very positive. There's still some things we have to address, particularly for house building in cities, things like the building safety regulator. I know for smaller builders, things like the bond market and access to trades and specialists is still critical. We've still got a skills and labour shortage. But the feeling from those 15,000 people in Leeds was really positive.
That's brilliant. That's really good. So in terms of the government's manifesto and house building targets, what's your view on that, and what do they have to do to get to those targets? What do you think needs to be done?
So I've always said I thought 1.5 million was completely achievable.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
And my ex-boss, Mark Reynolds, who's the CLC chair, also went into a select committee and said we should be saying in 10 years we could do 4 million, which I thought was a very...
that's clever.
I was there.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I was in the background.
I'll have to watch back the video, see if you were shocked. What's he saying? I think we've taken some great first steps. The planning infrastructure bill, it hasn't gone through Parliament as quick as we hoped to make the changes to the planning process to help bring forward larger schemes. Jeremy and I have talked at length. There's still more definitely we can do for SME builders. Matthew Pennycook and others have recognised that we need to do more. We've talked about ring fencing of sites for SMEs. We've talked about funding and growth support, changing the apprenticeship scheme to the skills levy, I think will help. But overall, I feel very positive. What we have to do now is kind of settle the market, particularly the finance side, both for consumers who are finding it really hard to get mortgages, particularly because of the price of housing compared to incomes, but also particularly for smaller builders who are finding financing and insurance quite a challenge.
Yeah, and competing for work and remaining in their local area and things like that. So what is your sort of message to our members? What sort of advice would you give them, amid all those changes that are going to come forward?
Yeah, and there's a lot of changes, right? We've got the Future Home Standard coming, which will impact on how we deliver homes. The government's currently consulting on construction products regulation, which will impact on the products we use and how that big kind of sector. I think the number of things I would say to your members. Number one is you've got a government that is pro-building and just launched a small business strategy and is really trying to change how government engages with SMEs, particularly, and large builders to make sure they're part of the conversation. And I don't think we've had that for a long, long time. But secondly, actually, just to give you a bit of a shout out, FMB are probably one of the most proactive groups I see in Parliament engaging in select committees,
That's good.
talking to ministers, helping parliamentarians to develop their thinking and engaging. So actually, I would encourage people listening to make sure you're making full use of your FMB membership and engaging with you guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Because
That's really kind.
genuinely, I genuinely believe it. Like the work you do,
Did you know about us before you were an MP?
a bit,
Yeah,
but not
okay.
really, because I was in consulting
Sorry, okay,
in
yeah.
Mace, but I knew of the FMB. But I kind of see you everywhere. Maybe because I'm used to seeing it.
Jeremy, what are you doing? Wait,
But,
sorry.
hey, select committees. Brian is quite on quite a lot.
He is, yeah, he is.
Your events in Parliament are really well attended by parliamentarians, which is a good test. It's not just industry coming; you get parliamentarians there. And I think the asks from government are really clear, which actually helps government to be really focused on what the FMB is asking for on behalf of industry. It's not kind of this kind of woolly, ethereal policy stuff you get from some organisations.
Yes.
Yeah. So the Energy Security Select Committee obviously recently did its recommendation on retrofit licensing. The government has responded today. That's your committee. Tell us everything. Give us the latest update. We had an update an hour ago.
I am very, very pleased. So the way a select committee works, there's a number of members. It's cross-party. And actually, I love that. Everything I do is cross-party. There's Lib Dems, Labour and Conservatives on mine. You might find Greens on some of the committees as well. We set an inquiry, and the first one we set was retrofitting homes. We take evidence from organisations, including the FMB, a lot of evidence. We have some clerks who help develop, a line of questioning, and we invite people in on different topics to give oral evidence, and we question them on their things. And that gives us a wealth of data and live industry data to make recommendations to government. Now, it's typical. The government always says, "Thanks for your ideas, select committee. We're not going to do them." Because that's kind of how things work. But they kind of write it in a nice way, and then they generally do it anyway. But there's kind of this kind of slight tradition in Parliament that the government never really accepts what the select committee says and then does it if it's a good idea. And one of the recommendations we made forward, because we heard a lot about schemes that have gone wrong, we had some people who were so impacted by poor retrofit, particularly in insulation, that we made a recommendation that there should be a licensing scheme for trades and for people. Working in the retrofit sector. I think we should go eventually to the position of having that across the industry. I think, although, don't get done, get dom would end on the BBC. That's probably not a bad thing. But I think we made that recommendation, and government's come back and said, yeah, actually, we're going to work on that. Set a panel up to look at it with industry. I think FMB are represented on it. It's already done in other countries. It will address a lot of the consumer issues. I've got people coming to my surgery at the moment who paid £60,000 for some people for a big home extension. The builder left a third of the way through and it's never turned up and gone bankrupt.
And I mean,
and what do they do? They're living on a building right now.
I was literally about to say, what are they doing? And your advice as an MP is quite difficult because actually to go through the court system, as you know, is quite tricky.
Court system, ombudsman, redress, it's all really complicated and doesn't actually benefit them. They generally probably won't get that money back.
And it helps professional, because you've come through the professional side of things, because lots of people would say, oh yeah, I want my kid to be an engineer or something, grow up and working that side. But being a builder has a very different connotation to it, which is something that licensing would address. Or we'd hope it would anyway. It
also gives you that credibility, doesn't it? And we want skilled trades like the building trade and all this, the people working it to be recognised for being like the skilled craftspeople that they are, and the quality that they deliver.
Yes, and AI is hopefully never going to be able to build bricks. It's one of those jobs that hopefully will be sort of safe. I don't know in the future.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there is a place for modern method construction, and we're seeing that with the large house builders, and I think it's fantastic. I've actually seen a 3D printed wall facade.
Have you?
Which some of the builders are now trialling, and it's phenomenal.
Wow.
But it looks too good. It's too perfect. So they are having to design it to purposely put imperfections in.
Really?
A bit of mortar.
Otherwise, it doesn't look real.
Yeah, like mortar marks. Every single brick is different, and it comes in panels, and they slot at the side of these kind of timber frame or steel frame homes. They're developing it still, but it's amazing, and it can print cornicing, it can print the whole lot.
Brilliant. How long does it take to do like one wall?
Good question, I don't know, but it's
kind
of like doing a jigsaw.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So there's a place for these modern trades, as well as it's not going to work on every site. You're going to get planning restrictions. You're going to get access is probably the biggest thing for MMC. You can't get the panels in because safety is still absolutely critical in the sector. We want to make people are working safe. So there is a place for it in ramping up house building with MMC, but we also will always have a need for specialist trades.
So is it innovation? Do we need to innovate? as an industry? Is construction lagging behind, or is it a case of throwing hundreds of thousands of people into the industry
I
to
think
achieve
I
targets?
think industry does need to continue to innovate, but I think we're a very innovative industry. What we're not very good at is adopting. So there's lots of variations of MMC. There's lots of variations of lots of things, and that is the culture of the construction industry. Is everything's a pilot, everything's new. We're always trying to improve, and there is a place for us to say we've got a product that we can deliver now. Let's just get on and deliver it in the majority, and we've got specialist skills then that still will work in those specialist areas.
Okay, thank you. Right, you have obviously been appointed chair of the APPG for infrastructure. So what are your priorities? Sort of tell us a bit about the APPG. You've mentioned obviously that I know you're going out and engaging all the time, but yeah, tell us what your sort of focus is.
So an APPG is an all-party parliamentary group. Again, they're cross-party, and you have to be formed with a Labour MP and a Conservative MP on your officer groups. One of the rules as the party in the.
Who is your other officer?
I've got a number of different ones who we kind of work together. I won't list them all now. We're quite a large group. You have to have a minimum of 20 members in your group. We're quite big at that. So different all-party parliamentary groups have different focuses. So I actually chair 4, and vice chair 1. But the 3 that kind of relevant to this is I'm vice chair of the APPG for better roads. So we're looking at highways, roads, potholes, all that kind of stuff. With a Conservative called Rebecca, who's fantastic. And I chair the all-party parliamentary group Excellence in the Built Environment, which is with the Construction Industry Council. We're focusing more on our first inquiries on quality in house building, how to deliver 1.5 million quality homes. And that's delivered in a select committee style. Go out for evidence, receive evidence, we do oral sessions, and we publish a report. APPG for infrastructure is more of an advisory group to government. So we have a series of closed events with parliamentarians and senior ministers and industry to have conversations about the big hitting issues, particularly with Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, and some of the ministers responsible for building, transportation, and the like. So APPGI is perhaps less active in terms of lots of outward-facing stuff, but we do kind of private engagement, if you like, with ministers.
That's really well explained.
As a cross-party group. Others, like my Excellence in the Built Environment, is more inquiry style, and some are more campaigning style. So the roads one, I think, will be more campaigning style. So,
what are you campaigning for with the roads?
We haven't fully decided yet.
Okay.
But I mean, fixing potholes, but it's very easy to say. It's very easy to say
always
fix
the one.
potholes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Always one.
I've got a tiny bit of a bee in my bonnet about potholes from a different perspective. I've got a constituent who rightly has pointed out, because unfortunately his daughter 18 years ago died in a car accident, and she died because of the state of the roads.
It's poorly.
And if you injured or killed someone on a construction site, you would be found liable.
Yeah.
If you're a council and you injure or kill someone because of the state of the roads, you're not maintaining them, you're not liable as such. There's no kind of safety focus on the potholes. I know people talk about, it ruined my suspension or it's a bad drive. Actually,
I think it'll be
I do believe we could reduce road deaths by putting more penalties on councils who don't maintain safe roads. And so maybe we might go down that route. I've not agreed that with my officers yet, but I think there is an argument there to say the public sector should have much responsibility for safety as the private
Someone's
sector.
got to be liable. And it's a bit like what we were talking about, actually, Jeremy, the other day with Grenfell. We were saying I was asking Jeremy.
Like personal liabilities. And things.
Exactly, we were talking about that. And I was saying, how did it end again? Who got blamed? And we were discussing that.
I mean, it's slightly different direction, but on the infrastructure side, I mean, the criticism always is it's very expensive, particularly in the UK. What's your sort of view on that? I mean, the UK is it fair to say we're sluggish when it comes to major infrastructure, expensive things over by billions? That's a sort of standard trajectory.
The UK is an expensive place to build. We are short of land. The makeup of our land is very complicated. There's a lot of land assembly. We do have shortage in key skills needs to deliver infrastructure and housing, and it does add to that cost. There are things that we've done in recent years, Brexit and others, that have further added to the cost to the industry, added to labour challenges as well. Plus there are things that we've done, or the previous government has done, particularly around certainty in the market, which reduces investment over a number of years, which means we now kind of have this big wave of issues that is crashing down upon us, from skills to land to finance to capabilities in the wrong places, energy capacity, water capacity, you name it. We've kind of got all the problems landing at once. So we know that the competencies of our people are no less than anywhere else in the world. We've got some of the best engineers, builders, construction managers, site engineers, etc. And actually, the UK skill set is sought after globally. There are countries that are trying to draw our skill away, both like Australia and other places, and particularly the Middle East, where you see a lot of the construction trade, particularly larger firms, moving people out because they can get better rates and returns and cheaper build. So planning infrastructure bill was a bill that the government's brought forward. It's currently going through the Lords. We hope they don't slow it down too much. We'll have to just get rid of them all. That was a joke. Don't speak on behalf. I don't speak on behalf of the government.
Let's dive into that.
That's very funny.
But it's now kind of slightly stuck in the Lords. We hope it needs to come back out once they've done their deliberation. And there is checks and balances. We have the Commons who set legislation, the Lords who scrutinise it. So that's how it works. But that will make a big difference in speed. And then Rachel Reeves and the paper I understand, and I've only read the headlines, has said this summer that we're looking for a second planning bill. And I think that will more address perhaps the things that your members face in that kind of town planning issues where we still see stalling and delays. But there's other things we have to fix. We have to fix procurement, and that's particularly for major programmes. HS2 is a prime example of where the commercial arrangements wasn't right. We have to deal, as I said, with land assembly and how we bring that forward. We've got to deal with how we deal with energy capacity because we need the energy infrastructure to deliver the things we deliver. So there's a number of things we have to solve.
Was the procurement side lack of business acumen within government, or is it more complicated than that?
I think it's more complicated because most government departments that procure major programmes or infrastructure are advised by the private sector. So HS2, and I won't say the companies, have had a very senior commercial function that was supported by a member of the Big Four, one of the biggest consultancy, QSPM consultancies in the UK, and other specialists. I would argue they got it wrong and advised their client wrong. So I don't think it was the client. I think actually the private sector has to take responsibility that when they are advisors to public sector, their job is to get it right. And on HS2, they got it wrong.
And they got it wrong.
Okay.
Brilliant, Mike. We're just going to finish on one last thing very quickly. Obviously, skill shortage, ageing workforce, building homes. What can be done to inspire young people into the construction industry, whether it be taking up an apprenticeship or doing a 2-week work experience placement? What would you say to anyone out there like you as a young lad who failed your exams? What can be done to encourage people to go into it?
Well, look, 15 years ago, I was on the RACS Matrix board in Leicestershire when I was working in Pick Everard. And there was a young Mike Reader going out to schools with a presentation saying, you should join the industry. We've got a skill shortage from bricklayers to quantity surveyors. We need you, right? And I'm sure 15 years later, there's a new plucky young Mike Reader going out, doing the same thing,
He's still
talking
here.
to schools.
Yeah, he's doing it. Bless him.
And so we can't keep doing the same thing we've always done of talking in schools, of doing work experience programs. The 3 recommendations I'm making to the new Construction Skills Council is we need more kind of try before you buy opportunities like boot camps, which the government has kind of adopted already, which is great. Because I think actually either you do or don't want to work in the sector when you find the realities of it. And you should be able to come in, try.
And that's okay as well.
Learn very quickly.
What you don't like,
And this could, I've experienced a year shadowing the Royal Navy. And actually I find quite interesting their training model was you get kind of sheep dipped over 12 weeks. You almost do 7 days a week. But you come out of that knowing the reality.
Yeah.
And I kind of think construction training could be more like that, really full on. Treat it as an emergency and people go in and do a really fast track boot camp style to get them to a position where they can take on a proper apprenticeship on site. So it's that try before you buy. Because one of the big challenges we have is people join industry then drop back out very quickly.
Yeah.
I think secondly, we should be looking at a GCSE for the built environment.
Brilliant. Love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we engaged too late.
Would it be a physical, a hands-on one? Obviously, GCSE, that's sort of, practical.
I think there's probably a bit of practical, but actually I think there's a lot of theory that you can bring in through surveying and the different disciplines. Brilliant. And actually we should be introducing people a lot younger to the built environment. I think that will create that skills pipeline. And thirdly, actually, again, drawing from the military, I do think I would like to see government invest in a national recruitment programme. bit like we see with the military. And everyone's been to the cinema, and you watch that thing of the guy popping up out of the water, and
That's so cool.
join the army, be the best,
So
whoever it
cool.
is. Yeah. Why haven't we got that for our sector? We are
Is
a
that
sector.
what inspired you to go and do that course?
I think it would, if it's framed the right way, when you talk to someone and say, what's it like in work in the construction sector now? Well, you use drones. We're bringing forward AI.
Yeah.
If it's grotty and raining, you're not always out on site. Actually, we work
It's
around
actually
things.
quite cool and glamorous.
One of the big strategies we have is to get watertight as quick as possible. And so that's why we have these modern methods of construction.
Yeah.
A lot of the jobs are working in offices. It's exploring problem solving, maths. You don't have to be kind of, the top of your field in maths and science to come into the construction industry. There's a whole range of opportunities to come in. And I think that national recruitment program, like the military have, would actually be a way that rather than having every individual company doing their own engagement program,
Yeah.
and there's hundreds of these things, right? That we have a national one. Can be funded through the CITB levy, funneling some of that away. So we don't want an extra cost on industry. But actually, if you're one of your members and there was already this program creating this skills pipeline, then actually it's better for
you can plug.
industry because they can reduce their own overhead spent on recruitment because you get this excited group of people coming through.
You actually really want to do it. Yeah.
So there would be my three big things. And I think for me as a young person, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it was just I just happened to join Scott Wilson on this placement. I don't know what would have driven me to join, but I think I had some good careers advisors. We don't really have careers advisors at schools
No,
anymore.
you don't really.
And they kind of looked at what I was good at, what I enjoyed. I enjoyed working in a team. I used to do swimming a lot, and I enjoyed kind of working with other people. I enjoyed problem solving, and they kind of steered me towards engineering. And it just so happened I got a job placement in civils and joined the built environment.
And it all worked out really well.
Yeah. So treated like a national emergency.
I think it is a national emergency. I think we have to now treat it like that, and I think the government's done amazing stuff. The new 10 construction technical excellence colleges, the hundreds of millions of pounds they're putting behind training and development. There's more industry engagement than ever before, but there's still more things we can do, and they were my three kind of asks of the Construction Skills Council.
Mike, I mean, it's so good to have you because you actually really do know your stuff on this, and it's really insightful and lovely to have you talking to us about all this important stuff.
It's great to have someone in the built environment and politics.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Actually, that's sort of what I'm trying to say, actually, Jeremy. Yeah, that as well. Thank you very much, Mike, for joining us today for our podcast. It's absolutely fascinating having you on, and we look forward to welcoming our next guests to our next episode soon.